There you are. I can't read their names.
Are we all set? All right, we'll call the January 6th meeting of the Hastings Planning Commission to order. Roll call, Holthouse. Here. Darling. Here. McLean. Here. Moyer-Kale.
Here.
Blake.
Here.
Mattson. Here. Foster. Here. Tassava. Here. And Sorg.
Here.
And Hatfield here. I hope you all had a chance to meet Meredith. Meredith is a sophomore at Hastings High School, and will be serving alongside us. It's nice to have you here. So, if you'll all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any proposed additions or deletions? Not. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as distributed?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Likewise, you've received copies of the draft minutes from the November 4th meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections proposed to the minutes?
Accept placement and placement.
Okay. Your support?
Support.
Moved and supported to approve the minutes as distributed. Discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay. Information items, we have none. Public hearings, we have none. New business tonight. First item is a preliminary site condominium project review for Bachman Field, which is located at 900 Bachman Road. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so for really most of the Planning Commission members, as far as a site condo project review of this scope, it's probably been decades since there's been a project of this breadth and scope that's come before the Planning Commission, likely even before the Land Division Act was changed in the late 90s. So the scope of this project falls under the site condo portion of our municipal code. A little bit of background, staff has met with the applicant informally, at least once informally and over the phone and via some other contact previous to this evening's meeting. This evening, again, the Planning Commission will be doing a preliminary review of the site condo project that the applicant is presenting for Bachman Field. So again, the site plan and the scope of this project is relatively large for larger than generally the Planning Commission looks at. So don't panic tonight if you see a lot of information in the site plan and documents that both the applicants provided, Rebecca and her staff report, Travis and his staff report, Again, this is a preliminary review. It does not mean that you have to make a decision tonight. In fact, in this case, and the applicant's aware of this, likely it may take one more, maybe even two more planning commission meetings before the planning commission would make a decision and recommend this site condo project to city council, because that would be the next step after planning commission review of the project would be for planning commission to make a recommendation to city council. So again, at that point, obviously the planning commission would want to have their T's crossed, their I's dotted from a lot of different perspectives. So really tonight, it's a broad overlook, kind of a 10,000-foot view of the project itself. You have information for not only the site plan itself, the number of lots, the road aspects, which would be a city road structure, sidewalks that conform to city standards. There's also an aspect of this which is open space, which is also a part in our ordinance that does apply to site condo projects. It also applies in this underlying zoning district, which is R1A. So you'll see some different zoning text referrals, both in R1A and open space, as well as the site condo. So there's a lot of information to look at, and we'll be happy. Staff will be happy to answer any questions, and as well as Mike West from Allen Edward Homes is here also tonight to field questions from the Planning Commission members. So with that, I'd entertain any specific questions Planning Commission members may have on this process, or anything of generic or specific detail that I could answer for you before we kind of let Rebecca and Travis just do kind of a thumbnail sketch of their staff reports. Nothing? Okay, thank you.
Rebecca, good evening.
Good evening. Thank
Would you like to review your report for us, please?
Sure, absolutely. Really what I'd like to highlight for you is sort of the distinction of the proposal in front of you and what your role can be. I do think the Planning Commission is familiar with and a little more used to looking at a site condo development proposal. You've seen those just recently. They're akin to a plat. And in that respect, I think you have some familiarity, but not only that, you have a little less sort of design responsibility. When you look at a site condo development proposal, you're really kind of looking at the lot layout and the road layout. And once you confirm that the lots meet all of your dimensional requirements and the road layout meets some of your standards, it's a rather standard review. It's a pretty straightforward review from your perspective. In addition to that, you're not the approving body, so you do that review and you make your recommendation to the City Commission. So in that respect, I don't think that's that difficult or confusing. You often will pair that with some recommendations with respect to making sure that the planned utilities have city approval, that the road design has city approval, and that your stormwater management is going through that same process. So you kind of cover your bases there. And that sort of, because of all of that, the bulk of that sort of rests at the elected body level, where they're sort of dotting the I's and crossing the T's as it relates to the paperwork and the legal reviews. This one is a little bit different, as Dan alluded to, in that the applicant has chosen to, which is certainly a legitimate option for them to use. They don't have to do it, and you haven't seen it, at least since I've been here. But it is the opportunity to take that site condo, which is really a land division proposal. That's what a site condo proposal is here's how I want to divide the land and provide access to the lots. when they lay that over this idea of we want to then create an open space neighborhood out of this, what they're doing is they're saying, you know what, we would like to use a planning technique to create some more interest in this in this design, rather than just your standard site condo review, which then gives you a little bit more of a design role. And which probably is also what Dan is talking about when he says you may or may not feel comfortable with moving forward tonight with that recommendation, just because now you get to do a little more design work like you might with the site plan. So I'm going to, rather than you have my review of the site condo, I'm going to make a couple of more substantive remarks as it relates to the open space neighborhood side of the coin. And that is because, first of all, open space neighborhood design it's not brand new, but it's only been around in Michigan for maybe 20 years, and it's only actively practiced. It's practiced more actively in rural areas because it's a way of preserving open space, and they do so through compact development. This is not quite the same, but it has tones of that. But my point being is that the whole premise of open space design, whether you're doing it in a rural community for preservation or whether you're doing it in an urban community to get green space in your neighborhood, it is based on one foundational premise, and that is a community says, if it will help you preserve more open space, then we will relax our density standards. That's essentially what it's saying. And the density standards take the form of lot size, right, and lot frontage. And so essentially you give that to an applicant, to a developer, and you say, we'll essentially let you have more lots, which obviously to an applicant that makes it worth their while to do that. But on your side, you're saying, however, the reason we're compelled to do that is that we think it will make for a better neighborhood design, and that you will take that latitude in your density and take some space within that project site and preserve it as meaningful open space. So the crux of that's very important that you understand that main thing, because then the whole open space neighborhood provision is not the least bit confusing, even though it's a couple pages long. That's not that confusing, because where are the bulk of the standards in this provisional opportunity? It's in the open space design. Because if you think about it, if what the city is saying is, we'll relax our density standards in exchange for meaningful open space, then how that open space is provided, the design of that, and how it is able to be functioned, or how it functions and how it is accessible, that's everything. If you can't get a good open space design, then there's absolutely no reason for a community to relax their density standards, because there's no side effect for you then. So you will note that in my report, probably the only place you're seeing, the dreaded bold statements of where I'm saying you guys probably want to talk about this, is as it relates to the open space design. They have, this particular proposal meets the metrics for open space, right? They've provided in excess of the percent required. They are meeting the standards as to what should and should not be included within the open space. And they are proposing authorized use of the open space. So from those elements, the open space proposal is certainly consistent not only with the standards but with the intent of the ordinance. Where you'll notice that where I raise a lot of questions or raise a lot of things that I think you want to talk about is as it relates to the arrangement of the open space. And in open space design, that is really the key feature. And just for your information, I've been doing open space design ever since it started in Michigan, and in fact participated in writing the first open space ordinance in Southwest Michigan. So I've seen a lot of open space plans, I've reviewed a lot of them, and seen a lot of developments. And so what I wanted to do is just to provide you with some of that insight
so that you were kind of coming from that same, at least from an informed angle of what is it that you should be looking for. You'll even notice on the, one of the last pages of my report, I give you some, I put some examples down there that are examples of open space design. The key is not knowing the metrics, because that's not the issue. The key is looking at how they are arranged on these three examples, because they really illustrate the things I'm saying in my statements as to ways that the open space in this particular project probably could be designed better. So I think, obviously, the applicant's going to speak to that, I'm sure, but when it gets to the board's deliberation, I would suggest that that's where you might want to have some discussion about, you know, the kind of open space network you think is what you want to see in your open space neighborhood and in this project specifically. And because you are going to layer your review of the open space neighborhood proposal, essentially the open space design, you're going to layer that into your site condo review. So even if everything is okay with the site condo and everything is okay with the lot and road layout, you know, I think the crux of your design responsibility on this particular project is going to be getting the open space network that you want.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Travis, anything you want to share with us at this point?
If you could just go to some of my comments, Dan. I noticed, let's see, we need so there's Woodland Meadows, it's west of Bachman Fields, and we need to have a water main loop provided there. The cul-de-sacs, we don't want to see dead ends in our water main, so we want to have water main loop there for both those cul-de-sacs. I also like to see, they have a driveway or a road that goes north of Woodland Meadows, and I'd like to see it actually go to Woodland Meadows private road, just for future connectivity, for that potential to connect. We also would like to see one of the sites be for a new elevated storage tank. For this site to actually become a reality, we need to have a new elevated storage tank, based on what Eagle has told us. So we're going to have a site for a new storage tank.
Okay.
And I think I identified lot 35 as that one. We'd also need the transmission main that's currently dead end at Bachman north of North Street to be extended along Bachman to tie into that new storage tank.
So can I ask why lot 35 was identified as a good place for that?
It's one of the higher elevations.
It seems like it's not very aesthetic, because that's the entry to the development.
Yeah.
So
It's ease of access to the water tower itself. We would need probably cranes, and we have to have that ability to have cranes be parked somewhere for various maintenance issues. So that would give us the most room to be able to do any kind of maintenance that needs to be done, let alone the construction of one.
where would be your next choice? Yeah.
I'll have to look. That's the one I identified.
Well, or really, I mean, this is an offline discussion, right? Because we need to put it somewhere. The city obviously doesn't own any property in this
Right.
area, so it's something that we'll have to work out.
Yep. And for aesthetics, it's not gonna be hidden anywhere. It's gonna be,
Well, yeah, but
100
no one
feet.
wants to give directions to their house and say, turn left at the big water tower. There's alternatives to consider.
that's not my department.
It doesn't pertain directly to this, only indirectly, but when we were looking at the project adjacent to this at the end of North Street, there was a number of neighbors concerned with the drainage issues coming off of the new construction that was done up there. What are the implications for that on this site?
So, the water for that parcel, it goes to the northwest and then goes, basically where the detention area is located on the plans, and it goes northwest of there. So, in theory, the water shouldn't be going to the pond at all, and that's where they show the detention area being, so it shouldn't affect the other development at all.
I think actually the concern was the other direction, that there was water running off of those properties on North Street down into the other development, but I mean, are we downstream of that as well?
We're not downstream, we're upstream of all that development.
Okay.
So that 40-acre parcel goes northwest. It doesn't go into the city, really.
Okay. Questions, folks? Actually, Mike, is there anything you want to respond to just based on what you've heard so far?
Absolutely. I'd like to at least maybe give a little more summary too of the project in general. For everybody, good evening, everyone. My name is Mike West. I'm with Allen Edwin Homes, 2186 East Center Avenue in Portage. Couple things I guess I'll first start off, and Becky's by far the renowned expert on open space plans. I'm not gonna butt heads with that. She's absolutely right. She's very good at developing these plans. I was a municipal planner for 25 years before I joined Allen Edwin, so I kind of got two interesting perspectives, being on the city side, township side administering these things, and now I'm on the developer side administering these things. So I'll share a couple things with you, probably which aren't trade secrets or anything. Developers look at open space not only for the ability to provide amenities throughout the community for everybody, but they also look at it as a way of having efficient, cost-efficient developments. Ways of increasing density to spread the cost of the project across those lots. I don't think I'm saying anything that you probably don't already know, and Becky doesn't already know, but that's just the honest truth. Development costs, land costs are what drive private sector home development. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to hit homes in a price point in a market that we can actually sell. And those price points vary. Obviously, the type of houses that's going to sell in Hastings are going to be different than those in Metro Grand Rapids or something where maybe certain types of development concepts work a little bit better. To that regard, we are voluntarily requesting an open space neighborhood, so obviously we have to be in line with the provisions of the ordinance. So if I could just maybe provide a quick overview and some of our thoughts on the open space. First of all, this is about a 39-acre parcel. We are proposing basically development of this as a site condominium subdivision in 4 development phases. So about 124 units when it's all said and done with in 4 development phases. We come up with about a 3.24 unit per acre average when it's all built. Be a multi-year project. The first phase would likely be this year, next year for construction, and then subsequent phases would be dependent on the absorption rate we're getting on the housing. We're looking at a home product that would be a mixture of two-story ranch and bi-level homes, anywhere between 1,600 square feet, maybe upwards to 2,200 to 2,400 square feet. 3 to 5 bedrooms, 2 to 3 baths, attached 2-car garages, and a target probably price point beginning in the upper 200s for those homes. That's where we feel comfortable in this housing market. We've also had some initial discussions with the city on possible workforce housing, possible TIF, kind of discussion for another day, another application, but I'd at least like to share with you that we're looking at that as well. With the open space neighborhood, the underlying zoning out here is R1A, which has a 9,900 square foot minimum lot size and a 75-foot lot width requirement. With the open space neighborhood, we can reduce those to as low as 6,500 square feet with an average of 7,000. What we've done here is we have kind of a mixture of what I would call 60 to 64 foot wide lots, and then 65 to like 75 foot wide lots. About 70% of the lots we have are in that 65 to 75, so a little bit below what the underlying ordinance requires as far as lot width goes. Our average lot size is about 2,200 square feet, so higher than that 65 low point, but just under the 9,900. So we're kind of in the middle of what we could get for the smallest lots in the open space network versus what the underlying R1A zoning requires. Our development concept for this, I guess, I can speak a little bit to the examples that Becky has in her staff report, but our thought was on these open space areas, we were going to do 2 primary open space areas. The first one, what we're referring to more as a recreational and habitat area, would be the western side of that project, so the lighter green on that shading. That's a larger area, it's about 3.7 acres. It's about the width of a football field and about the length of about 2.5 football fields, just for size perspective. It's a pretty good size area. What we're proposing within this is a natural walking path that would come off of Street F and Street E. There'd be sidewalk connections from those sidewalks along the road into an internal natural path that would wind through that area. A recreational field in the northern end, that's about a 1/4 acre in size. And then for the area that's left, what we're envisioning, because right now, if you're familiar with that area, there's a tree line along the west line, but otherwise it's soybean field this past fall. So we would have to do something in that area to kind of enhance that area. So what we're proposing to do is to plant kind of a combination of wildflower beds and then some shrubs and trees at a certain ratio per acre that would enhance that area for birds, wildlife, for viewing for people. Along this natural trail, what we're also thinking about doing is obviously putting some benches for seating, establish a kind of a bird feeding station area where people could sit on those benches, and there could be bird feeders and bird houses. A lot of people like to do that. And then also along there to put some, this was a new concept to me, but we've done them in a couple other communities, these kid-friendly climbing obstacles. So as you're walking through these paths, they have these little areas like natural logs that they can use for balancing and jumping pads and even small swing sets, individual swing sets you can put there just to provide some opportunity for a kid, if you're taking them for a walk, young child, to play in that area. So that's the western end of the project. The central area of the project is more of a preservation area. That's kind of what we were envisioning it at, and a habitat enhancement area. So we had Artemis Environmental do a wetland delineation for us last fall, and they identified 2 small wetland pockets. They're wooded wetland pockets. They're located in this central area. Even though they're not all wet all the time, they're blue on the map if you look at those 2 blue areas. So around those wetland areas, we would do similar to what we're proposing on the west end. We would do some habitat enhancement of that area, wildflower mixtures, trees, shrubs, again, to accent that area and make it more of a habitat preservation area. I know the ordinance says that the primary recreational area should be centralized, so kind of got those 2 flipped a little bit. But I guess if there's also some recreational elements desired in that central area, I think we can talk about doing some changes and enhancements. And that's what I'm hoping to get from this meeting. I didn't have any expectations of getting a recommendation at this time. It's a large development project. We didn't even provide all the information, but we wanted to at least get some feedback and get some direction from the Planning Commission so we can make our changes before another submittal. Other than that, public streets, public water, sewer, sidewalks on both sides of the road. What I could do, and maybe then we can get into some questions if you have them, is just a couple things. I know Travis's, we got his comments. A lot of those, I guess, are engineering comments. We can get into them, where the water main goes, where the loops goes. We're gonna do it. The municipality wants on that all the time anyway. It's a little early in the process, I think, the preliminary area to know exactly where those are. One area that I'd like to speak about just a little bit, because it does affect our design, and what I want to do is take information from this meeting that we can get to our engineer so we can get our design finalized. I know there was originally kind of a reference for like I don't know if it's a street stub or a right-of-way. If you look at, I think, the first blue beamed up plan of with Travis's comments on it, it says 66 wide public right-of-way easement that would connect to that Woodlawn Meadows PUD. And our understanding is that Woodlawn Meadows PUD is, yeah, right there, is a private street. So ours are gonna be public. We thought that public-private connection would not be the best location from discussions with staff. We shifted it to the north because there's a larger vacant parcel. It's a long rectangular parcel. It's really got more potential for future development that could not only go west, but then curl back to the south to, I had the name of the subdivision there, help me out.
Calgary.
Yeah, where Calgary Drive is, I think it's called Hillcrest? Northridge, I'm sorry, Northridge Estates. It would be able to tie back into there based on some plan design elements there. So we personally think that street stub's probably better located right there where we're showing Street F, as opposed to, I think it'd be about 250 feet to the south, where the Woodlawn Meadows PUD. So that's something that we would like to get some direction on, because obviously if we have to provide a street there, that changes the design and layout there. All the other issues, you know, we can talk about those at some other time, I guess, engineering related. We've had some preliminary discussions about some desires that the city has for improvements, and obviously we're looking probably for some TIF assistance too with this project to make it feasible for us. Let's see what else here. I got Becky's, I'm sorry, I got a lot of this stuff right after the New Year, so I haven't had a lot of time to process it. I've been doing it the last couple days. In Becky's staff report, there's a lot of comments and very thorough. Some of them we're very aware of, like for example, there's some informational deficiencies that she identifies on page 3. So we need cover sheet with survey plan location noted. We will get that with a revised submittal. Some streetlight design details. We show locations, don't have details. We'll get that addressed as well. We'll show the street trees that we're proposing on the revised plan as well. Draft master deed, we can design that once we get the design kind of more hammered out. There is one typo that I'd like to bring to your attention on our end. Under the open space requirement, there is a 25-foot rear yard requirement. Our plan shows 20. We'll make it 25. That's just an error on our end and our engineer. So that will be changed to 25 with a revised submittal. Let's see what else. I don't know if you guys at this point have some questions for me that we can kind of, I just don't know which direction you want to go, if you want to talk more about open space or talk more about some of Travis's comments, but appreciate any feedback or questions you have.
We're probably gonna be all over the place with a lot of different
That's
questions.
fine, yeah, fire away.
Your tolerance of that is appreciated.
Looks like you all got together for me too. I don't see anybody else here tonight, so.
I have a question about Street F that kind of stubs off to the north. It looks like, because obviously you guys are using the open space preservation, so you'll have smaller areas. What I wanna make sure is that that adjacent property, when it develops, that they'll be able to extend the street and build within the zoning ordinance to the south of where the street would be extended. Cause you have some sites there on the south side of Street F, but they're meeting those additional space requirements. I don't know what the future development there will be. I just wanna make sure that they can meet the zoning requirements if they extend that.
So you're talking more
If I'm
depth, is
explaining
there
that.
sufficient
Yes,
depth
yes,
on those
there's
lots?
sufficient depth between.
That's a very good observation. It's R1A to the west, and I believe, so you're looking really what are your setbacks, and I think Becky's report, you have what the setbacks are. I think it's a front, it's 30, and the rear, I thought it was 52 as well, but somebody told me that was a transposition, it's actually 25. So it's 30.
That actually would make more sense.
I thought it was 52. I was like, wow, that's a
I did too.
weird rear yard setback
Not only
requirement.
is it a lot, but it's a weird number.
It's a transposition. So the way we would look at it, we'd look at what type of building envelope you can get. 30, 25, that's 55. Looks like with that street there, you have a minimum of probably 115 or 120 if you take it right down to that property line. Because our lots are 110 on the south side, like 118, 117. Looks like there's another,
Looks like it's a little bit bigger.
yeah, maybe another 10 feet maybe. So let's just say 10 feet, that's 120. So you back off 55 from 120. I'll be down. 65, so you have 65 foot of depth for home product. And we could fit most of our home product in a 65 foot depth lot.
Okay.
Even, they would be wider because they need to be for the R1A, but with that depth, there should be sufficient area. And we can still look at possibly shifting that road a little bit further to the north. I mean, one of the reasons why we're trying to make provisions for stormwater retention in that northern area, that's the natural low spot for the property.
Sure.
So they haven't finalized the design for that, so they like to be a little more conservative instead of pushing that road north and then not having enough land area to do it. But
Right.
I think as it's currently laid out, it would work, but we can also look about possibly shifting it a little further north just to give that extra future development depth.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I'll just comment, I'm not wild about the central open space area because it's really not at all accessible by the public. It's giving everybody in that area a larger backyard is really all that it's doing. I don't think that that meets what we're looking for.
Do you have any suggestions for us on what you're looking at? I mean, again, if we're gonna make it more of a recreational area, we'd have to improve access. Because you're right now it has limited access. If you want that to be kind of a recreational area as well, we can look at expanding access, whether that means from Street C, which would be that north-south street to the east there. I'm sorry, no, it'd be the one right to the north-south street. So like maybe in the area of lot 57, we can provide some type of access there, or eliminate that and provide some additional green space with access there. We can also do something to expand it maybe, on the west side, on Court D, to provide some more access, and then we can maybe insert some type of amenity and kind of replicate the walking path that we have around there, put some benches in there.
And I think you really have to take a hard look at the intent behind the willingness to increase density with a public land trade-off. And I think you've got several issues that are going to be of some concern, not necessarily roadblocks, but at least of some concern in that, if you look at probably the plans that Rebecca used to illustrate her comments as one extreme, you're almost to the opposite extreme with what you're proposing here in that, yeah, it's really a relatively small number of lots that are truly gaining significant access to those public areas. And, yeah, it's really not a social alternative to having bigger lots. I think the other issue with increasing the number of lots on this particular parcel is looking at traffic impact on ingress and egress, in that you're going to be directing a fair amount of traffic through relatively small residential areas. They're gonna feel it.
I think they feel that no matter, even if we went to an R1A design, they would feel
I mean,
it. 'Cause,
anything that happens to
Yeah.
this, they're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
But, the greater the density, the greater the impact. There's no denying that. And I think that particularly looking at Calgary, Calgary is currently the last development to the west, to the north of town. And it's a very quiet neighborhood. This will change the character of that neighborhood potentially.
I don't know how much, I think most of the access here would probably use Bachman and North Street, so Calgary's kind of north and west. There's really not a direct route in and that. Some people might come in through there.
But
Future, if it was get
It's
developed.
the
and
shortest
connected.
route out to N43. Yeah.
If we can talk maybe just a little bit, I don't know who's controlling that. If you can get it to where, maybe page 6 of Becky's staff report, we can just talk a little bit about those
Can
designs.
I ask you about this, the street A first, for
Yeah,
on?
absolutely.
If you have all these houses built on North Street, did you plan ahead and put that easement through there or that right of way through there when you built them houses on North Street?
It was already there.
It was already there.
It's
Really?
there, yeah, it's there. Yeah, it's a street stub, just like we're providing, I believe. Is it an improved street stub or just
Yes, I
a?
missed that up there.
It's a city right of way.
Yeah, is it actually improved? I don't know if it's.
Oh, it's not
Not
improved.
improved, but there is the right of way there.
Yes.
So, yeah, they just didn't build the improvements. Like, we're gonna build them to the west line.
Right.
This just wasn't built to the north line, but the right of way is there, the city right of way is there to extend the street.
Because I know you built houses on almost all the lots,
Yeah.
haven't you?
Yeah, I think we acquired those lots after from the developer, so we didn't get involved with the design of the site. But
Thanks.
So we did study the designs that Becky shows in her staff report, and we studied them. We did our calculations on what we typically do for determining like lot cost, for an average lot cost. We look at the land cost, we look at what's the typical public street with water, sewer, sidewalks, etc. We got a ballpark figure somewhere around $1,200 per lineal foot for public streets. These are really, really nice open space designs, but from a development standpoint, they literally probably double the cost of our lot size. And I know sometimes you're not supposed to consider economics, but that's everything that a residential home developer considers as economics. Under those two designs, we did a comparison, and I'll tell you why they result in so much additional lot cost is, if you look at any one of those designs, they have portions of the streets, sometimes both sides of the streets, they have no lots. So what you're doing is you're building street for open space viewing as you're driving, and then you're clustering the houses in certain areas. Even with the reduction that we would get under an open space neighborhood provision, which equates to about 20% higher lots. So we're getting about maybe 20 lots more under the open space than we would if we went with the standard. I think we're somewhere about 102 when we did kind of a comparison plan. What could we do on an R1A, about 102 lots instead of 123, 124, whatever we have here. But there's a lot of street that has no lot frontage. So what ends up happening is the cost of of building all that infrastructure gets centered to the lots that are outside of that. And I don't know, I know it works in some communities, but in a lot of the communities that we work in, at the price points that we're trying to hit, you take that average lot cost and you try to transfer it, you know, doubling it in some cases. I think option A was about an 80% lot increase, per lot cost increase. And then I think examples B and C were over 100%, which is more than twice what it would normally cost under our design. And that's just not to say that that's not what the ordinance or what this design achieves. It just doesn't make fiscal sense for us in a market like Hastings, where I think this makes sense, where you can get, you know, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 per house. I think a lot of the open space communities that I've seen are usually high-end housing, where you have more ability to share that increased lot cost to them. So I would say if you're looking for a design like one of those three, that we would opt out of the open space design. We just can't do it like that and make it work financially for us. We've found that there's other ways to still provide functional, usable open space. Our communities that we do similar open space plans are, and again, we can talk about the central area, we can enhance this. But what you're getting a lot, just like a traditional subdivision. It's smaller, so you have less maintenance. A lot of people like that. I bought a lot 30 years ago, just under an acre in a subdivision. Thought it was great until I got older, and I have to rake all the leaves every year, and I have to mow it every 2 weeks. It's a handful. And I don't use it. I thought the kids would use it. They played in the front yard. They never went in the backyard where I put all the stuff up. But on these things, you have an opportunity for everybody to have access to these areas. So it's all commonly owned by everybody in this site condominium subdivision. It's accessible to everybody through the interior street network. So we're doing sidewalks on both sides of the streets. You can get anywhere to these things through the sidewalk network. So you're walking along the sidewalk, and then you can veer off and go into any of these open space areas.
There's no way to get to this middle open space
Exactly,
area.
and I tell you, if that's what you want for better, we can improve it, accessibility, we can do that.
Great.
Yeah, we can add, you know, some amenities, and again, our original thought was the recreational element would be on the west end. This would be more of a habitat management area. We can expand this area if it's accessible, if it's acceptable to the city to provide more of that element there. But a design like one of those is not gonna work for us. One-sided lot roads, zero-sided lot roads are just not where we need to be to provide, you know, attainable housing in the communities that we typically try to. We can't keep houses in the upper 200s with that increased lot cost. So, and we can provide open space, I just think we can't provide it like that, not for this project. I'm just being straight up with you guys on that. If that's something you really want, then we'll have to re-examine, you know,
There's
our
going to be
use.
meaningful quality space,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you agree that there's things that you could do to modify this,
Absolutely.
and we'd like to see what that is.
Sure, and the only thing that I would ask is, in addition to some increasing accessibility, is there a certain type of amenity you want in there? Do you like the paths? Do you like the benches? Do you want a small playground in there? What type of amenities?
How does future funding for those amenities work? Is that on the HOA to maintain a mode path?
Yeah, for all of it. And to be very honest with you, our experience has been, we're trying to provide amenities that are beneficial to the people that live there, and also not too costly for them, because we've bought into developments and we've done developments in the past where you have clubhouse and a pool. Sounds great, looks great on a plan, but boy, when people stop using those things and they don't want to pay the fees for them anymore, we've had developments that have literally gone back and have torn down the clubhouse and have filled in the pool because nobody wants to pay for it anymore. And it's, you know, in Michigan, those types of amenities, a pool, probably only using a pool, outdoor pool in Michigan 4 months out of the year, so 8 months out of the year it sits there. And, you know, large clubhouses have insurance cost, maintenance cost, and a lot of times people don't use them. So yeah, we try to get, because that's part of our consideration, we want it to be successful, and we want people to be able to not pay too much for the maintenance of those areas.
So within your financial realities, can you pave the walkway through that 3-acre area and then pave a pathway through the center area with a 5-foot wide sidewalk?
So what we were proposing is when you come in off Street F or Street, like I'll just focus on the western area now because we really don't have anything shown in the eastern area. In the western area, when you're coming off the sidewalks along the public streets, we have a 5-foot wide sidewalk that meshes with that. And then as you get into the open space, it transitions into a natural path, a mode path. So you'll see that like the orange is the mode path, and you'll see on the north end and then on the south end where it comes in, those are paved. So we would pave that south end till you get to the end of the lots, and then it would be a mode path.
So does it fit within your guys' finances to just pave the whole thing? Because you know as well as I do, 5 years from now, when the HOA's lawnmower breaks, there's no more path.
Well, the bigger problem is when that asphalt path starts to break down. Now the cost is significantly better. And again, it's more of a habitat maintenance area, management area, so we're thinking we want to make it natural. So instead of walking on asphalt or concrete for a little bit, you're walking on a mode path, and then you transition back into the paved path when you get back to the streets. I mean, our desire would be natural, because that's what we're trying to create in these areas, is more of a natural area.
So how wide is this path, or it's just, we're gonna have a path here, we'll figure it out later? Kind of
You know, I mean,
for now?
the sidewalk connections are 5 feet, so typically I think we would mow, 6 or 8 feet. I mean, it would be the association's desire on how wide they wanted to mow it, but
Sure.
you would
No
probably.
one wants like grass like coming it around.
You don't wanna mow it 2 feet where, you're getting.
Getting ticks
Yeah,
off
it would-
or anything like
it
that,
would
but
be-
yeah, I mean, eight feet.
Yeah, I mean, if they want an 8-foot mowed path, we mowed 8 feet, I mean.
You know what might also be beneficial is, I put those examples up, not for someone to put a price point to and say we can do that. It was to show the purposes of open space arrangements that are meaningful. What might be helpful is if I mean, I would be happy to chat with Mike about ways to improve this that I think would get to not only what the ordinance is saying, but what I'm hearing from you. Because single-sided seats are typical of open space developments, but open space neighborhoods are urban versions of it, and they don't have to be single-sided. But as an example, you have what you call for in your ordinance is the village green. That's not the same as a field area on the edge of the development that's a habitat. You know what I'm saying? It's a different, because it's an urban area. And so that might be more helpful, is to have that conversation with him, so if that gives him more help to.
What kind of research have you done to determine optimum price point?
Well, it's out of my area, but we have a whole team of before we even purchase, well, we don't even purchase the land, we enter into a purchase agreement. So with Mr. Peterson, we have a purchase agreement that has terms, and until we get land and title, we don't buy it. So we know what our price point is going in. How it's determined, I don't know. I'm not in that realm, but they look at all the market data, they look at what's needed. Typically, I think, we're building in similar sized communities as Hastings, and our price point seems to be what I've seen is upper 200s to like mid 300s is where we can build new housing and the market can absorb it. Obviously, that is different if we're building in Caledonia or somewhere in Grand Rapids. The price point might be 100,000 higher than that we can actively sell, or even more than that. But I'm sure they look at household income, they look at employment base, they look at market absorption, past sales, and so forth, on what they feel comfortable with.
And I ask that because I think that, and I'm sure you've got a great team of experts, but the upper middle price range in Hastings does not exist. So you can't look at the market and say, well, there's no demand for that, because there's been no supply of that.
There's demand at all price points across the state right now. All communities have demand.
I understand, but I'm saying that where we are missing, you can't,
what's optimum for the community is not necessarily to bring in a project that addresses activity that's been going on the last 2 or 3 years, when we may have an opportunity to create activity at a different price point that hasn't existed. Am I making sense? I mean, you can't say that there's no market for a $300,000 home,
No.
because we virtually have no $300,000 homes available.
Well, you would with this development, because we'd be right in that price.
Right,
plus
but,
or
you
minus.
know, I'm just saying that as you're trying to decide whether you want to be in the high 2s, low 3s, mid 3s, high 3s, yeah.
Yeah, and there's, like I said, there's people that do this, not me, so I'm not sure what, I asked them what they think the price point's gonna be, because I always get the question, and I don't know the answer. So I can give you the answer, but I don't know how the answer was developed internally. But it's probably not that there's no market there, it's that the market that we want to hit, which is usually what they call the sweet spot in the individual community markets, where the highest demand is, so that we can actually, I mean, this is a big commitment in investment with 124 lots. That's a lot of homes. So we gotta make sure that we can build those. And we don't wanna build them in 20 years. We wanna build them in, 5 or 6 or 7 years on a 3 or 4 phase project. So that doesn't mean there's not a market for higher end homes. It just, maybe that market's absorption is not gonna be fast enough for us. And sometimes it all changes. Sometimes we think it's this and we get in there, we build phase 1, next thing you know, say phase 2 is selling at a different price point, a higher price point. And we don't know, market conditions change. The earliest this would be under construction would probably be 2026. What can happen in a year? Well, go back a few years and ask that question, a lot can happen. And then you run it out over the course of the development schedule, which might be 6, 7 years. All kinds of things can happen, so. But that's what we feel comfortable with. That's probably a better way of phrasing it, is where we feel comfortable with on the price point for the homes, that we would make the investment to purchase the property and then sink the money into the infrastructure, so.
Question. You guys have built similar projects all over the state. What would be the closest to this that someone built out that we could drive to and see the look and feel of?
Middleville?
That's what I wondered, like Misty Ridge or?
Yeah, I mean, I can get some of those off the top of my head. I've been there about 4 years, so I know the ones that we've got approved in the last 4 years. I don't know the ones that have been approved 15 years ago. Sometimes people tell me about a community and it's right around the corner. I don't even know about it because I wasn't involved with it. And we have communities all over the place who've been doing it for 30 years. But I can try to get some examples in the area of what it would look and feel.
Thank you.
So this development, what do you start out doing? Selling the lots and then selling the homes, or are you guys doing spec homes? I know up on North Street, some of the homes you had up there, you were leasing them.
Yeah.
Is that the plan for this development too?
Well, I think our plan, so the first part of your question, I'm sorry, was, I forgot what the first part was. Oh, yeah, so how, we're a home builder, we don't sell lots.
Okay.
So we develop the lots, then we build homes on lots. How that determination is made, sometimes we have what they call pre-solds, where people hear about us, and we get calls and action before we even have a project done, ready for home construction, building the infrastructure. And then in some cases, we build spec homes. So we're probably, I don't know what our ratio is, it probably depends on where we're at. Sometimes it's spec, sometimes it's pre-sold, as we call them. So in some cases, yeah, some cases we lease them. Sometimes we build what we call flex specs. So we build a spec, our desire is to sell it. If we can't sell it in the term, we may lease it for a year or two and then try to put it back on the market. So yeah, there's a combination, but primarily our bread and butter is retail. Probably 80% or more of what we build every year is retail. We sell it.
Other questions?
Yeah, I'm still learning about this, but for the middle area with the wetlands, would the lots adjacent, like 87 and 86, be prone to flooding? And if so, like what protections would be there for that?
Well, we would, with every lot, we do grading of that lot so that it does not flood. The wetlands are shown in blue, but they're not always wet. So a wetland doesn't have to be standing water to be a wetland. And these have seasonal fluctuations of water. But these lots, any lots that would be near the wetlands would be designed so that there's no flooding. We have individual drainage plans for each lot that we build upon to make sure the water doesn't flood the house that it's on or the adjacent homes as well.
Other questions? Well, thank you very much. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to get this in front of us as early as you have. Hopefully the discussion tonight has been of some value to you. And we'll look forward to continuing the discussion as we see your thinking evolve.
Is it?
Do we need to have Rebecca coordinate with them on some of the things she talked about?
That was what I was going to ask.
Rebecca's made the offer, so
And you're taking me up on it?
I think it's more a question of if they're going to take you up
Well,
on it.
yeah, I mean, I guess there's two things. I'm more than happy to meet with Becky and talk about it. Is there any thoughts or directions that you guys have as a commission that can help guide our discussion? Because right now it's Becky's thoughts and my thoughts. What are your thoughts? That's kind of what I was hoping to get from here. What would you like to see? Would you want to see more amenity, more accessibility in the central area? What type of amenities? That would be helpful just for.
Well, I think you've heard a lot.
Yeah.
It's been somewhat disjointed.
Yeah.
But I think, the concerns that you've heard are the use of the open spaces, the location of the open spaces, the accessibility to the open spaces from streets and sidewalks, traffic flow patterns.
I guess I have one quick question. With all of this infrastructure, are there any plans for bike paths or anything like that? And if not, is it possible to build some of that into that central green space? And then it has more of a recreation feature to it and ties into some of the other, bike paths and whatnot that are pretty prevalent throughout the city right now?
I don't know about bike paths.
Or walking trails?
Walking trails for sure, yeah, and that just from perspective, that's about a 2-acre size in the middle right there. So, yeah, we could definitely do walking paths. That's kind of what I was getting at. We can kind of take some of what we're proposing on the western end, replicate that in the central end with some increased accessibility, and then, like I said, if there's an additional amenity that you like to see there, we can do that. And
I don't know how wet the wetlands are. I know
Right.
you said they're not flooded all the time,
Right.
but potentially maybe even doing like a boardwalk type trail there would go to address some of that issues with being accessible when it's wet.
I was visualizing maybe some kind of looped trail in that little park where people would just naturally use that as a walking area.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking from Court D, if we increase some of the open space on the north side of that wetland, maybe you could do a lineal path that would go around it, and then we can get another exit out to Street C, which is that north-south street to the east, and provide a similar type of arrangement, within there. Again, I don't know if that would be enough, if that satisfies the committee or commission. Don't know if there's.
One of the big things got going on right now, and I notice it every day I go through on Main Street down here where the new apartments are at. People walk their dogs down there, and they have no place to walk them except on public property.
Yeah.
So that would be a great place to have even a dog walking area.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely be, we could designate an area there within, the difference is here, individual owns the lot, so you'd have, I have a dog, I have a fenced in backyard in my lot, but, yeah, you could provide a small dog park in there. We've done that at another community.
I don't know about a dog park. I think if you had trails going through that center
Yeah.
space there, it'd be a good place to walk your dog.
Sure, yeah, as is the west side.
I like where you put that road going on to the Northridge Estates property, because
Yeah.
I think that property can develop quicker than
Yeah.
the Woodland Meadows area.
I'm just thinking out loud a little more. You see a lot of trends of like planting native species of plants.
Yeah.
Where it's not just a big open grass lot that needs constant maintenance. I just wonder if some of that could be mixed in even, not just in the central area, but throughout a little bit where it wouldn't be a huge burden of maintenance, but kind of just adds some natural beauty to it.
Yeah, so the individual lots themselves will obviously be landscaped by the owners, but what we were proposing, and I can't take credit for this because I'm not, it's not my area, but in our narrative, we kind of indicate that we have this planting regimen within those open space areas where we're going to do these wildflower planting beds and then these deer-resistant shrubs. They even call out the species and everything at a ratio of about 20 per acre, and then some bird-friendly deciduous and coniferous tree plantings at a ratio of about 14 units per acre. So again, soybean field right now, so you need some enhancement after you leave it. You got the forested wetlands in a bit, but you can supplement that. And if you, and there's people that know how to design this stuff that I don't, but I can envision what they're thinking, and you're gonna have these trees and shrubs that are gonna grow up, and they're gonna have nice natural area. Birds will be there, you have a feeding area, people can enjoy the birds, nice walking area, get off the paved paths and so forth. So yeah, for sure, that's part of our proposal in the narrative, so we just don't have the details on that.
I think one of the big things you have too, and it's Travis's suggestion, I don't know if like Sarah said, I don't know if the main entrance is a place for a water tower, but there's definitely gonna have to be a water tower up there, so you're gonna have to figure something out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moving parts to this project, so I don't know when the appropriate time to talk about, the sale of the property. We don't even own the property yet, so at what point is it, there'd be a sale, and then we work with the city cooperatively to provide some land area, and again, we're still looking if there's interest in workforce housing, have a percentage of that be possibly workforce housing in there, using the new residential TIF requirements to help funding, both for some of the city improvements and some of the private improvements that we've been putting in there. But again, we gotta get a concept and a design that's even acceptable to the city before we get too far into those conversations too, so. I guess I'll ask, and maybe Becky will give me the answer when we meet, but I'll ask you guys, are you okay with the layout, or are you looking for a kind of a more radical change in the layout that's going to affect the design? Or
I certainly understand your interest in getting that kind of an answer. I'm not sure we're to the point where we can tell you that yet, because we haven't really seen anything other than what really has to be considered a preliminary proposal.
Yeah.
I think we're certainly excited about the prospect of a new development going in town. It's been a long time since we've seen something similar to this. We've made great progress in addressing rental needs, but we've not made much progress in terms of providing single-family homes. But we want to make sure that it's the right project that in fact stimulates other projects to follow, be it by you or by others, because there's more land up in that, particularly up in that quadrant, that is available for development. So I think that we're conscious of price, but we're also conscious of quality. We're conscious of the visual impact on neighboring areas. I'm sorry we can't be more definite, but you're not dealing with an island that's in the middle of nowhere. So we have the delicate task of making sure that it integrates in an appropriate way with the rest of the community, and that it's economically feasible for you. We're not insensitive to that. You've got at least a couple bankers up here at the table that understand that. So.
Okay, real good. I'll schedule time that works for Becky. She's down in my neck of the woods, down in the Kalamazoo area, so we can meet and have a conversation on this. Again, my initial thoughts would be we would do some improvements in that central area.
I think the more you can do to, yeah,
My-
beef
my-
up those areas.
Yeah, my thought would be, we're probably not gonna change the layout much, but we would change that internal centralized area. And I don't know if that's gonna be satisfactory, I guess.
Well,
we can
you
find-
work on it and come back to us, and then
Okay.
we'll have something better to
Provide better direction. Okay,
more
yeah.
specific, thank you.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, we appreciate you being with us tonight. Anything else before we move on? All right. 2025 meeting dates, which essentially is just a continuation of what we've
been doing.
First Monday of every month, with the understanding that if we have one of those rare occasions where there's no activity, that we don't need to hold a meeting. We're not gonna have a meeting just for the sake of meetings, but otherwise, we'll stick with the first Monday of the month. If we have a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion.
Support. Moved and supported. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, 2024 annual report.
Trying to bring it up, but,
Oh darn.
look at this.
Hey, see what we do with it.
Yeah. So the annual report, again, that's provided for in the ordinance that annually the planning commission will prepare an annual report of the activities of the planning commission activities in the prior year. Staff has compiled this. Planning commission then would review and then make a motion to pass it along to city council for their review.
Okay, any questions for Dan on that?
I like that review.
You did a lot.
I know.
Yes.
It was pretty good. I like looking back at that stuff.
Should put that in there.
Oh, sorry.
Still the half paragraph they give us.
Yeah. All right. Do you, we don't, do we?
If you could
do we need to
entertain a motion to
approve that?
accept the planning commission annual report and recommend forwarding to council for their review.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, annual election of officers.
Make a motion, we stick with the re-elect of the present officers we have. Dave Hatfield as chair, Nicole as vice chair, and Sarah Marty Kale as recording secretary.
I'll support that.
Moved and supported. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, thank you very much. Old business, JPA, JPC update. Not much.
Not much.
Already canceled for this month, haven't you?
JPC canceled for this month. JPA, I don't think there's been any.
We're not scheduled till February.
Yeah. JPA did meet in December, but there was really nothing of substance.
Remember, I was there.
Yeah, so why don't you give the report?
I could.
Okay, go right ahead.
I'll concur exactly with what your part of the report.
Okay. Thank you. Work task list, Dan?
Yes, thank you. Staff has asked Rebecca to kind of accelerate a couple of these items. Item number, the driveway width requirement. This came up, I think, a year ago or so. It was a referral by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Our current minimum driveway width at the property line is 20 feet. The Zoning Board of Appeals had heard a case. The applicant had made a pretty good case that, it may be time for planning commission to review the minimum, the maximum lot width of 20 feet in recommend 24. So staff, and that was reviewed by the Planning Commission this past year, and you deferred decision on it. So we would like to move that up and maybe have you review that at the February meeting in light of some of these developments where we've got 2-car garages, and it probably makes sense to review that maximum driveway size of the lot from 20 to 24 feet. We're also asking, due to the planned unit development ordinance that we currently have, and it's a cumbersome text, it's a cumbersome ordinance. That's also on the work task list, it was on it for last year. We have asked Becky to look into revising that in some fashion, whether it be, blow up the current PUD ordinance and go to maybe a special use type format for planned unit developments, or just to clean up our current planned unit development text as a zoning text change, zoning ordinance as it currently is now, to streamline the process. We're finding, especially in light of the most recent PUD amendment that we had for Woodlawn Meadows, I think it's challenging for the Planning Commission. I definitely know it's challenging for the public at large when, there's public hearings all over the place. You got a public hearing at the Planning Commission level, public hearing at the City Council level. Different people get informed during the process more by word of mouth rather than by our standard, which is to publish the notice in the paper for public hearing, notify property owners within 300 feet. A lot of things travel by word of mouth and people hear it at different times. So again, we're going to work with Becky on hopefully bringing maybe more streamlined planned unit development ordinance to you, maybe not as soon as February, but start working on it and have it, hopefully something in March that you can review. So those will be the two that staff will be working.
Questions for Dan? Okay, thank you, Dan. Tracking report.
Yeah, the only change to the tracking report is the addition of the Woodlawn Meadows project that Planning Commission reviewed and recommended to City Council back in November. City Council conducted their public hearing on December 9th, conducted the first reading of that ordinance. At that meeting, because of the holiday shift in schedule, the second reading could not occur at the December 8th meeting of the City Council. It was moved up a few days because the charter requires a 10-day period, which we didn't have. So the second reading will be held a week from tonight by the City Council.
Okay. Questions for Dan? Open public discussion. Mr. Rezegi.
Nothing tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Rezegi.
Thank you. Nothing tonight.
Okay. Staff comments. Why are you looking at me puzzled?
I don't know, it seems like I should say something else, but.
I don't feel compelled.
Yeah.
Commissioner comments. Yes, Meredith, nice to have you here. We look forward to your participation.
She's a great trombone player as well.
Is she? Okay, excellent.
First chair.
Okay. As a sophomore. Wonderful. All right, motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Yes. Let me know when you're available, where you'd like to meet. You want to do Zoom, if you want to meet in person, or Zoom, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
I got
No, actually, I was